Julia Manchester is a political reporter for The Hill, and she joins me now from Washington. Thanks so much for being with us. Democrats criticized the White House for failing to brief lawmakers before carrying out the drone strike in Baghdad. On Saturday, the Trump administration sent a formal notification about the strike to Congress, but the entire document is classified. So, Julia, how are lawmakers reacting to that?
Yeah, it's obvious that a lot of Democratic lawmakers are reacting very negatively to this. You know, we've seen ever since the strike on Thursday that Democratic lawmakers have argued that they were kept in the dark, and therefore the American people were kept in the dark. So you're seeing the Trump administration getting quite a bit of backlash over the execution and the intelligence surrounding this airstrike, and also that document, which is classified now. And I think you're going to see a lot of push and pull in the coming days to get that information released, or at least get to have Congress be able to view that information. But Elaine, this happens at a very interesting time. This is all happening ahead of when Nancy Pelosi is supposedly going to send these articles of impeachment to the Senate in the coming days. So, you know, this comes at a time when there is already so much tension between the House and Congress, as well as President Trump. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes moving forward, given that national security in this incident is such a big factor.
Right. Well, in addition, you have Democratic presidential candidates weighing in on the president's decision to order the strike. Here's Senator Elizabeth Warren earlier on CNN.
Look, it was a targeted attack on a government official, a high-ranking military official for the government of Iran. And what it's done has moved this country closer to war. We are not safer today than we were before Donald Trump acted. I think the question that we ought to focus on is why now? You know, why not a month ago? Why not a month from now? And the answer from the administration seems to be they can't keep their story straight on this.
Julia, how does that compare with what the other candidates are saying?
Right. So you're seeing Elizabeth Warren very much criticizing the Trump administration's response to this and how they've carried out this attack. And you're seeing the other candidates very much carrying out, sending the same message that are being very critical of the president. However, there's definitely a bit of difference in messaging that you see from some of the different candidates. You know, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have called the killing of Soleimani an assassination, whereas Pete Buttigieg was asked on CNN today whether this was an assassination. He said, "I'm not going to worry about terminology." So you could be seeing a divide in terms of how they essentially handle this going forward and what the aftermath of this is. You know, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have very much seized on their anti-interventionist policies and policy beliefs on this issue, but you're going to see Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden, who are more centrist and more maybe slightly more hawkish on national security, take a very different approach.
Well, up until this point, as you know, foreign affairs has not been a big focal point of the 2020 presidential race. Could this situation with Iran change that?
Absolutely. I think it depends on the developments that we see with Iran and how much I think civilian life is definitely impacted. But, you know, I think obviously in 2004, the war in Iraq played a big role in the campaigning up to that election. So I think it will definitely be in the headlines. But like I said, it really depends on what the developments are. I think if tensions start to de-escalate and cool down, it won't play as much of a role. However, if this is something that Americans are seeing in the headlines every day and really start to impact their life, especially when it comes to oil prices, for example, we know that this could impact gas prices here in the U.S., then I think you're going to see a potential impact on the campaign trail.
Yeah, let's talk more about the 2020 campaign. Candidates are announcing their latest fundraising totals. So who came out strong in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think the obvious answer to that is Bernie Sanders. He brought in $34.5 million in that quarter alone, and it shows how strong his grassroots fundraising apparatus is. I think you saw Joe Biden really start to hold his own, roughly with $22 million. Pete Buttigieg holding his own with $24 million. You know, with Pete Buttigieg, it wasn't as strong, I think, as some expected. However, he's still holding his own. Elizabeth Warren did not do as well as many of us expected. However, she kind of alluded to that when she asked her supporters over the holidays, basically for more donations and more support. However, I think this shows that Bernie Sanders is the candidate to watch.
Well, what do the fundraising results tell us about the types of candidates voters are gravitating towards?
Well, I think it shows that maybe some younger voters are definitely gravitating towards Bernie Sanders. We know that Bernie Sanders' excuse me, average donation to his campaign from supporters is quite low. So I think it's more of a grassroots effort, if you will. I think with Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, they are more so of a traditional fundraising apparatus. They are taking more money from high dollar donors as well as lower dollar donors, but they have this belief that if they will take money from really anyone who's qualified to give them money in order to defeat President Trump. But I think this shows really the strength of Bernie Sanders' fundraising apparatus.
All right, let's talk about the Trump campaign. So that campaign brought in $46 million in the fourth quarter. This is money that was raised while the president was being impeached. Julia, how is impeachment factoring into his reelection campaign?
It's factoring in a huge way. He's really using this to rally his base, and he did that at the rally that was held the night he was impeached. He has brought this up, in a number of showings with supporters. His campaign has very much used it to campaign on, showing that the D.C. establishment is out to get him, and impeachment is proof of that. So this is very much a big rallying point for his supporters, and I think you're going to see him using it going forward into a potential Senate trial.
All right, Julia Manchester in Washington for us. Julia, thank you.
Thank you.